All right, Chrys Chrysanthou of Quadrant Biosciences. This is an interview that we talked about arranging to talk about the technology that your company is developing. Just for some background, you and I met at Karate Combat One World, and you seem like a fight fan too. So, just tell us about your product and how you got involved with Karate Combat.
Okay, so Quadrant Biosciences is a company that's focused on overall brain health, and we work on various brain health initiatives from concussion to autism spectrum disorder and Parkinson's disease, as well as ADHD and some other things. We had the opportunity to meet Dr. Julian Bales at an event in Chicago and showed Dr. Bales our product, ClearEdge. And ClearEdge is a functional assessment that uses a Samsung tablet, a proprietary inertial measurement unit, and a foam pad. And with those three things, we're able to perform a series of cognitive tests and balance tests that very accurately can portray the function of the brain. And so an athlete that has been concussed would show a significant difference in scores than they would if they were otherwise healthy. So because Karate Combat very much wants to provide proper care for their athletes, and they want it to be more than just the combat sport that it is. They want to protect their athletes. They have partnered with us, or we have partnered with them, to track the brain health of their fighters so that they can ensure they have proper care, and that every time they enter the pit, they have proper cognitive function and proper stability, so they're not putting themselves or their opponents at additional risk.
So, can you remember when you guys were you guys involved with the beginning when Karate Combat first started, or did you jump in midway through? Because you seemed, when you and I were speaking at the event in New York, it seemed like you had been following all their events. So, are you guys in from the beginning, or did you jump in around the Miami event?
So, the Karate Combat One World was the first event that we were part of.
Uh-huh.
And we were doing a trial at that event to see if it was feasible to be testing the athletes and how the logistics would work. Going forward, we will be testing the athlete before every event and after every event. So we will continue to track those athletes longitudinally, where at One World we just tested them before the event.
I remember you had your stuff with you because you weren't sure when we were there if you were going to be gathering data right away. I know somebody, I forget the name of the fighter, it was like the second or third fight. Somebody got knocked out. Did you test that gentleman? I can't. His name doesn't come to mind. I'm just thinking of it now because that's when you had showed me the case you brought with you of your equipment.
Yes, at this point, we did not test any of the fighters after the event. So any of the fighters that did get knocked out, at this point, we have not followed up with them. We would like to follow up with them prior to their next event. But at this point, the trial was simply to test these athletes before the current fight. The real value in the ClearEdge system is that tracking over time. So it is ideal that athletes, especially those involved in combat sports, be tested multiple times per year.
So this is something that, I know you guys are just starting it with Karate Combat, but this is something that could benefit everyone, like, in other promotions, not just in MMA, but in boxing and in the long run, just to kind of like check for symptoms to see if things are going bad for them, right?
Absolutely. It is not good for any sport when athletes are injured to the point where they have long-term effects that cripple them for the rest of their lives. And whether that's an orthopedic injury or a head injury, it is never good to allow an athlete to get to that stage. And the opportunity with a product like ClearEdge is that ability to give the doctor and the trainer and the athlete a very accurate view of where they are and how they're progressing. And if we start seeing deterioration and long-term deterioration, then there's an opportunity to take action right away before it's too late. It would be, right now, most of that is just guesswork. So, you can tell when an athlete has a concussion. You can maybe tell when an athlete is ready to return, but that ability to be able to determine whether an athlete should continue or not, that's one that is very difficult, and without objective, reliable information, it's almost impossible to make that decision. And so using a product like ClearEdge, which gives you that objective data, that, data, as they say, data is responsibility. And with that knowledge comes the responsibility to make the right decision for the athlete's long-term health.
So when we first started talking about it, you had mentioned something about the mouthpieces. Now, and what I read on the website, so are you collecting the saliva from their mouthpieces to help determine where they're at as far as their if they are concussed or not, or is it some type of electronic data that's gathered through the mouthpiece?
So the mouth guards that are being used, those mouth guards are being used to detect and track the force and the number of hits that an athlete takes and the force of those hits, both independently and cumulatively. That product is not a Quadrant Biosciences product.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually don't have anything to do with that mouth guard.
Okay.
So our business consists of two products as it relates to concussions. One is the ClearEdge product, which as I've discussed in some detail. But we also have in research right now a saliva-based product, which hopefully in a year or so we'd be able to have at these events. And what we would do is we would take a saliva swab after the fight, and we would be able to use that saliva swab to determine whether an athlete had a concussion. We wouldn't need to do a full functional assessment to determine if they had a concussion. We would use the saliva for that, and then we'd use the functional assessment product, ClearEdge, to track the recovery.
So is this something like in the long run? Obviously, you're doing it with Karate Combat, but has there been any conversation about extending it to other promotions? I know, because the only reason I'm asking because I know Boss is involved all over the spectrum. Like he does commentary for Karate Combat, Boss Rutan, and I know he's like on the executive board there, and then he also works over at Pro Fight League, that's doing their New Year's Eve show that he just called this past weekend. So I don't know if there's been any conversation about approaching other promotions to let them know about this, especially an up and coming one like a PFL. Have you guys had any conversations like that?
We have not had any conversations with any other organization than Karate Combat. Ironically, our business was founded, and a lot of the research that we initially did was on mixed martial arts fighters, primarily amateur mixed martial arts. Since we've commercialized our product, however, the only work that we've done with combat sports has been Karate Combat.
That's interesting. So I know they said they were going to Japan sometime next year. Are you guys going to go with them?
Yes. The plan is at this point that we're going to spend some time in the month of November negotiating a long-term agreement. And the objective is that we are going to attend the event in Japan, but we are also going to bring this to all of the Karate Combat dojos. and all of the fighters will implement the Clear Edge toolkit in their dojos as well.
Oh, nice. That's good. Talking about the fighters, when you guys came in, you said One World was the first event that you started using this with Karate Combat. Did they how did the fighters react when you guys approached them with this new technology?
We were very pleasantly surprised at the reaction of the fighters. The fighters were extremely engaged. They were very competitive, and they were very interested in their results and in their scores. They were also very interested in the results and the scores of their opponents and the other fighters. Of course, because of HIPAA privacy regulations, we couldn't show them the scores of their opponents, but they were very much engaged in the process, which is very exciting to us. There is a perception from time to time that these athletes don't care about their health. And the reality is we see that when you provide them with something of quality, they can tell that there's been a lot of thought and a lot of work put into the product. And so they were very engaged through the process, and as I mentioned, very, very interested in their results, and very focused to see how we can move this product forward and continue to test them over their careers.
Yeah, no, well, that's exactly what excited me about it when you and I first spoke. I mean, we just happened to be standing next to each other at that event, and then when you mentioned it, as somebody that I trained half my life in martial arts, and when you mentioned what you guys were doing, I just saw it as all I saw was positives for the future of the sport. Especially, I mean, it was coincidence that we were in New York, and how we met in New York City, where they had the ban on MMA for so long, and one of the reasons, obviously they say it's too violent, too dangerous, and then you have a company like yours that's doing something to protect the fighters long run, for their safety. So I definitely think it's something that needs to be, put out there more. And Karate Combat's just innovative. They're doing a lot of innovative things. When I spoke with Phoenix Carnevale at the beginning, when they first started, she talked about the technology in the gloves and how they monitor heart rate and stuff. And then when I met you, you talked about this. So it just, I mean, outside of the unique presentation and stuff and all the the things that people see as a gimmick, it's nice to know that the stuff that they're doing for the fighters and the future of combat sports is probably something that's going to extend in the long run. We'll probably see in the future, like technology like yours in other promotions and in other combat sports, so that they don't have such a negative view to the casual fan. Speaking of casual fans, you seemed like a pretty hardcore fan when we were watching the fight. So, are you excited for Karate Combat? Are you an MMA fan?
I have not been a combat sports fan. I am not very big into UFC, and this was my first exposure into Karate Combat. But at an event like that, where you're standing pit side, and you can literally see the sweat beating off their faces. And a couple of times we had fighters fall right in front of us, where you could literally reach out and touch the fighter. When you're involved in any sport at that level, and those athletes were very talented athletes, to be that close to the action, you'd almost have to be dead not to be as excited as we all were. It was a phenomenal event. It's a phenomenal organization. They're doing things the right way. It's very scary to see. I had a conversation with a club owner today, and not a martial arts club owner or a combat sports owner, but another sport. And she said to me, "I want nothing to do with concussions. That's not my problem. That's the parents' problem." And too much we are seeing today, people looking at concussions as the boogeyman, and people running away from concussions rather than taking the responsibility of managing the health of these athletes, and to have a sport that's as dynamic as karate combat, and then as focused as they are at managing the health, the overall health, not only the brain health, but the heart health, and everything else that they're working on with these fighters. It's just really refreshing to see an organization take responsibility for the health of their athletes. And I think more organizations should do that. And if they did, I think we'd be having fewer and fewer conversations about whether kids should be playing sports or not. I think it would be, a very easy decision if more organizations went to the level of care as karate combat is going.
I can't agree with you more. Again, like I said, I was so excited when you told me what you guys were doing. I knew there was more to talk about, and obviously we couldn't talk during the fight because everybody was into the fights. But thanks, Chrys, so much for taking the time to talk about your company and what you guys are working on. Just really quick, do you know Quadrant Biosciences is the company, but you said there's another name for the product?
Yes, the product is called Clear Edge. So you can find us either at quadrantbiosciences.com or clearedgetest.com.
Cool, and I did put I know there was a really informative video that I actually put up for the results that the night that we watched Karate Combat One World, so that's already on SureDog, but this is definitely a little more in depth, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I appreciate it, and hopefully we see each other in the future soon, and more of your company's work in other combat sports.
Thank you so much, Ed, for your time, and it was an honor and a pleasure to meet you and get to know you over the last few weeks. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thanks.